There's been a lot of talk recently about box office bombs, but now comes the film Oppenheimer, which is a film based around a bomb. For many people, this is their most highly anticipated film of the year. It comes from director Christopher Nolan, who is one of the best directors around, and also it comes out the same day as Barbie, and this film and Barbie have had some sort of internet marriage where we now have the Barbenheimer craze. Before seeing either film, I've said to people that if you are going to do a double bill, maybe watch Oppenheimer first and then watch Barbie second, just so you finish on a more light-hearted note. But after watching Oppenheimer, it is such a heavy film where you need some time to let it settle, maybe go on a walk, because there's so much packed into this one. It is also 3 hours long, so you are going to be in that cinema for quite some time. And it wasn't until we really got into the Manhattan Project that I was fully engrossed in the film, because the first sort of half an hour, 45 minutes, we do go through Oppenheimer's early life, and that was also time to really get an understanding of how this film is going to be structured. Because, no surprise, Nolan has gone against the linear approach and instead juggles several different time frames at once. Even from the start of the film, you are thrown into it, and it is a bit like entering a lecture theatre, being a bit late, where you just have to sit down and try and get up to pace with things. But you do eventually do that, and then the film explodes into life. Before seeing this film, I think you've got to know what to expect from it, because if you're not a fan of dialogue heavy movies, then this film could be extremely boring for you, because that is exactly what it is. There's a lot of scenes where you are just a fly on the wall. There are scenes where it's just two characters having a conversation, but there's also moments where we have a hearing or a committee, and the music really just become so important here because it builds up and you're just waiting for that crescendo, but it really does a great deal of actually bringing intensity to the scene.
And there's a tension to the sound in a way that I think fits the highly strung intellect and emotion of Robert Oppenheimer very well.
Oppenheimer is a film which requires your undivided attention, because even if you are watching the film intensively, you can still get lost. As expected, Nolan does not hold your hand here, and there's many times where he could have put on the month or the year on screen to help guide the audience, but he has faith that they'll pick up on things, like seeing that Oppenheimer now has a newborn baby, so we know that some time has been skipped. On many occasions, we switch between colour and black and white, and Nolan has confirmed that that's due to the different perspectives. So with black and white, we're looking through Lewis Strauss's perspective, that character is played by Robert Downey Jr., and then when it's colour, it's J. Robert Oppenheimer, who's played by Cillian Murphy. Both of these actors, by the way, deserve Oscar attention later down the line. You know, Robert Downey Jr. has been doing Iron Man for many years now, and you can tell in this film that he's really relishing playing this sort of character, and he does it very well. And the same with Cillian Murphy. I mean, he's fantastic as Robert Oppenheimer. He's great in Peaky Blinders, and I'm so happy now he's got a leading role in a massive film like this. And he completely deserves all the plaudits he gets for it, because he's a great actor. And also, what he does with his face sometimes, sometimes you don't have to say anything. You just tell so many things by just looking at him. There's also an absolute heap of co-stars in this film, including Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, Kenneth Branagh. There's also some great surprise cameos in there as well, and everyone does an impressive job. With such a bulk of a cast, it means that some aren't getting as much screen time as they deserve, and with that, some characters are left feeling quite underdeveloped. That, of course, is not a new thing for Nolan films, and another thing which isn't a new thing is bad sound mixing. Let's not get mistaken, it's nowhere near as bad as Tenet, but there are still plenty of moments here where I'm sat there like, what has that character just said? I wish I could just turn on some subtitles, because I want to know every single line in this film, because the script is so good. And as I've previously said, this film is mostly made up of dialogue, so it becomes even more frustrating.
Brilliant! I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Oppenheimer is often credited as the father of the atomic bomb, and the film does really well by delving into Oppenheimer's mindset about what his creation has done to the world. Watching him come to terms with the fact that, yes, he may have not pulled the trigger here, but he did make the bullets required for this weapon of mass destruction was really fascinating. This film is based on a book from 2005 called American Prometheus, and after watching this film, I am inspired to find out more about this whole historic event and maybe even read this book, because after watching the film, I was like, I enjoyed the 3-hour film, but also I want to know a bit more about this, I want to know a bit more about that. I mean, I could have been sat there for 4 or 5 hours and I still have enjoyed myself, I think. If you intend to see Oppenheimer because you want to see a few explosions, then I think you will be underwhelmed because yes, the film does go into the production of the atomic bomb, but the film is appropriately titled Oppenheimer because it does focus on the man himself. That's not to say there's not gripping moments in here. The Trinity test sequence is incredibly compelling, and for lovers of cinema, they'll fully appreciate the craft on show here, and I'd love to see the behind the scenes footage because apparently there was no use of CGI at all throughout the film.
That's pretty goddamn impressive.
You do feel zapped into that time of war where every decision is critical to the fate of millions of people's lives. There are some flaws and it can be confusing at times, but for the most part, it's a monumental experience, and Nolan and the filmmaking here is to the highest standard. The score by Ludwig Göransson is one of the best all year, and the film overall is also one of the best of the year. I'm going to leave one of my favourite tracks from the score in the comments, so feel free to check that out if you want to, but if you haven't already, definitely do listen back to the music because, regardless of the film, the music is beautiful. I'm currently still processing the film as I record this video, and it's a sort of film which I'd happily do a deep dive in because there is so much to talk about. I don't even mention Einstein, for example. But yeah, anyway, what's your thoughts on Oppenheimer? Did you like it as much as me? Let me know in the comments below. And if you fancy another video, on screen is one which is apparently pretty good.